Kyle, your initial order without even thinking of who's going to win the division and the proceedings afterwards.
I've got Baltimore winning the division. I believe they'll go 13-3, maybe 12-5. I've got
You said 13-3. You mean 13-4?
13-4, excuse me. Thank you. It's a 17 game season, not a 16 game season. I still have to get that through my head. I'm going to
Me
have
too. You're not alone.
that second spot is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to pick the Cleveland Browns. I think they're going to squeak in that second spot. I think Pittsburgh finishes at 3, and I think Cincinnati rounds it out at 4. I'll start at the top with the Ravens. I still think the Ravens are the best team in the division, despite the fact that the Steelers did win the division last year at 12-4. I just see the Baltimore Ravens as a better team simply because I think Lamar Jackson is going to have a better year than he did last year. Last year was kind of a struggle for him. There were some issues early on in the season just with the continuity that they were able to establish as far as play calling goes. And Lamar Jackson was visibly and verbally frustrated that defenses were basically telling him, "We know what you're running. So do your best, but we know we could stop you better than we did the year prior when he just slaughtered the league by himself." I think that Baltimore's going to make adjustments offensively because of that. So I'd still expect Lamar to use his feet very well outside of the pocket. He's definitely going to make some highlight plays throughout the season. I think J.K. Dobbins is going to be set up for a massive year this year. I'm definitely expecting him to get a massive share of the carries moving forward with Baltimore. I think he might get over 1,000. I think by and large, I think he's going to get over 1,000 yards this season. With the way that Baltimore loves to run the ball, I expect nothing more than 1,000 yards from J.K. Dobbins this year. And I think that connection between Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews is going to be solid. So I don't know how it is going to be with the wide receivers and Lamar Jackson. That's kind of been the issue. They haven't really been able to connect as much as they would like to. So maybe there's some improvement on that side of the ball on the offense for Baltimore. But I think by and large, I still see the Ravens as the top team in the division. I think Cleveland is going to have to really battle it out with Pittsburgh for that 2 spot. I'm just betting a little bit more on Baker here than I do with Ben. I think Baker had a pretty solid year last year. Still has some turnover issues, still has some inaccuracy issues to deal with, but I like the general direction of where the Browns are going. This is not the Browns from 10, 15 years ago, where they were undoubtedly one of the worst franchises in the NFL. This is a brand new team. They have a very good culture, and I think as long as they're able to continue the success that they had last year, I think they're set up for a solid playoff run this year. They had a huge playoff performance against the Steelers last year on the road. I think they won like 48-37 in that wild card matchup against the Steelers last year. So I could definitely expect another divisional round appearance for the Browns. I don't know if they're going to get all the way to the AFC Championship. It's a bit of a stretch in my opinion, but I think this team is definitely worthy of possibly getting to the AFC divisional round this year. The Steelers, it's like I said, they're going to be in that battle with Cleveland for that 2 spot. I think this is Big Ben's last year as a Steeler. I mean, it looked like at the end of the playoffs last year when they lost in that wild card round to the Browns, I thought he was done there. It looked like he just didn't have it anymore. He was very emotional on the sideline. It seemed like he was hanging it up, but he's coming back for one more year. I think defensively, this team is still going to be pretty solid. It's just they can't have that performance like they did in the Browns carry throughout the rest of the season. So giving up 48 points on your home turf in a playoff environment, you can't have that. You can't have that linger into this season. So I expect Mike Tomlin to get the best out of these players here. So that goes without saying. But I think they're going to be a little bit worse off than they were last year. They had a fantastic start, went, I believe, 11-0 last year, and then they lost 4 out of their last 5 games. So they can't have a repeat of that end of season disaster that they had going into this season. And then to kind of round out the division, I've got Cincinnati finishing in last place, simply just because I think this is another year where you're going to see Joe Burrow develop. They have to protect him more this season than they did last season. 32 sacks in only 10 games. And you lose Burrow due to a torn ACL, a torn MCL, and a bunch of other ligament damage in his knee in his first season as your franchise quarterback. That is your franchise. And you have to protect him. Kevin could tell you all about when it comes to protecting Hall of Fame potential quarterbacks.
Pain.
So really the main focus with Cincinnati this year is to protect your most vital asset in Joey Burrow. If you're able to do that, you've got a shot. Despite the fact that Joe Burrow only played 10 games last year, he was 65% as far as his accuracy goes. He completed 65%. He had, I believe, 13 touchdowns to 5 interceptions and also had some rushing touchdowns as well. So if they're able to protect him a little bit better than they did last season, I think they could definitely maybe get to maybe a 500 record at best. I think the best that they'll probably go is maybe 6-11, maybe 7-10. If they get anything above that, then I think they've really gone they've gone above and beyond in that respect. But I still think that Cincinnati has a way to go as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, I'm literally just going to roll out here and just put out 2 names for each team that are going to be pivotal in their success. Starting at the top, I agree with Kyle's predictions first and foremost, so let that be known. I'm going with Lamar Jackson and Marlon Humphreys for the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar's got to step it up, and he's either got to make adjustments to realize I can't run every play, and I got to become a pocket passer, or at least a better pocket passer. And Marlon Humphreys has got to lock it down. We all know that he's become pretty much the Charles Tillman of the league. He's really well known for his punch-out, force fumble method that he has and has been very effective in this league. But he's an anchor on this defense, and when he's successful and Marcus Peters is successful on the other end, we know that the Baltimore Ravens as a whole can be successful as a unit. They did lose Matt Judon to the New England Patriots, but they still have Calais Campbell and a litany of other pass rushers that can make a difference in the league. So Baltimore, again, in my aspect, they're going to live and die with Lamar. And on the defensive end, Marlon's going to need to step it up and be a little bit more consistent. For the Cleveland Browns, it's going to be Baker Mayfield and Myles Garrett. Obviously, we know that Baker Mayfield had a phenomenal season and a great way to end it out going into the divisional. They were a couple of minutes away from maybe surprising and stunning the Kansas City Chiefs, but they fell a little bit short. I know that people are probably going to look at me sideways and say, how do you not put Nick Chubb in there? Listen, when the quarterback has the ball every single play, even if it's a handoff, you have to realize that he is the X factor every single week. Baker had one good year, aside from his rookie year, and he needs to see if he can recreate that year once again. Odell Beckham Jr. is coming back from the ACL injury. He has not been put on the PUP list, so it's looking like he's going to play within the first week. I've heard no rumors to say that he has any setbacks in camp, and he looks ready to go. On the defensive end, the Cleveland Browns showed out a lot of people or proved a lot of people wrong. And showed that the defense can play great and step up. Obviously, the litany of the list of Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, and all the rest of those boys out there, they can make some noise. Myles Garrett's probably one of the best, if not the best, edge rusher in the NFL just because of his size, athleticism, and speed. Don't even get me started on the man's strength. He is probably going to be the X factor every week for the Browns. He's got to get pressure on the quarterback. He's got to lead that defense, and he's got to find ways to make game-changing plays. I know that's sometimes a little bit harder for a defensive end. It's always going to be double team, but I mean, shit, Aaron Donald does it every week. Myles Garrett's going to be up there with him. I mean, for God's sakes, I don't know how he's not a 99 in my opinion, but I mean, in Madden, but you know, we're not going to get into that bullshit. So then sliding into Pittsburgh, I'm actually going to be a little bit different. And I'm going to say that Najee Harris has got to have a big year. The run game was a little bit lackluster last year for Pittsburgh with the inconsistencies of James Conner being hurt and the rotation of their backup running backs being a little up and down with Snell and the supporting cast there. And then I'm going to go with T.J. Watt on the other side of the ball. T.J. Watt showed out last year and showed that he can carry this defense to God knows what kind of success. I mean, Pittsburgh, for God's sake, started 11-0, and a lot of that was due to their defense and Minkah Fitzpatrick and the rest of those boys. So if the run game can be successful, the play action will be fine. The spread out wide receiving core for the Pittsburgh Steelers can succeed, and then the defense can do what they need to do and get the ball back into Ben's hands. Now, for the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously Joe Burrow's the X factor on one side, but I'm going to go instead of a defensive player because they don't necessarily have anybody on defense that can go out there and make a play, at least in my opinion. I know one of their safeties was rated like a 92 in Madden, but I'm not too familiar with him, if I'm being honest, and I, for whatever reason, can't remember his name. But I'm going to go with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon was hurt for a lot of the plays last year. Joe Mixon didn't really have much help, and Joe Mixon really could not get it going once Joe Burrow got hurt because for whatever reason, They kind of just packaged it down and they focused solely on the run game, and they locked him down, stacking 8 or 9 in the box to make sure that he could not get a rhythm going. We all know that Joe Mixon can be one of the better backs in this league, both out of the backfield and pass catching, and in between the tackles, running up the gaps and the seams. So Joe Burrow's got to stay upright, like Kyle said. Joe Mixon's got to get it going. If the offense gets it going, they're probably going to have to compete shootout-wise, because I don't see the Cincinnati defense necessarily stopping anybody, in my personal opinion. Once again, these are all opinion-based. I agree with Kyle in terms of record for the Bengals. I don't necessarily see them going over 500. I could definitely see them going 6-11. That would be my guess. Going upwards, I see Pittsburgh probably going 10-7. I would say that Cleveland repeats last year because of the success and the healthy OBJ, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and the rest of that offense showing out that they could go crazy on the offensive side of the ball. I think that they go 12-5, and then I say that Baltimore has a very big year, and they go either 13-4 or maybe even 14-3, because Lamar Jackson is just that dynamic. I think J.K. Dobbins, like Kyle said, is going to have a very big year. And I really, really think that Hollywood Brown and the receivers that they drafted in this draft can make a difference. They're fast, they're big, they're tall. So we'll see if Lamar can hit those players in stride and make that offense that much better.